We have a relatively important discussion to make, and it has to do with space colonization. And it also has to do with indigenous cultures, and it has to do with the human culture. So what are these three things? How are they connected? Because there's this belief, there's this predilection that the human being is indigenous to this planet. That's a fundamental belief stemming back from ancient times to the fossil evidence, human fossil evidence dating back several million years, suggesting that the human race evolution from a primate into the modern human, into the neo-human, into the stellan. I would say this is a fundamental belief that spans many cultures and many nations and many people. Therefore, the conclusion is that because human beings apparently evolved or were created, it doesn't matter the explanation, they originate from this planet called Earth, terra firma. But that means that because humans originated from the Earth, they are the indigenous culture, i.e. the native culture, i.e. the original culture, the original species. So we say that humans are an indigenous race. And we look at the Aboriginal cultures and the early native cultures as our forebears, our forefathers, our ancestors. So that our ancient ancestors, were natives. Our ancient ancestors were primates and other primitive life forms, other Homo erectus and Australopithecus, so on and so forth. But that runs contrary to the actual situation that says that we are a space colony. That the human genome, the human genus, originated from other parts of the universe, be it another solar system, another star system, another galaxy, another planet or set of planets or series of planets. And that genomic data, which constitutes the human being, was brought here to create the human species. So colonization, maybe it's because we haven't done it as a race yet. It's mysterious and speculative and, it's provocative. Well, we haven't done it. Because we haven't done it does not mean that it has not been done before by other advanced societies, other advanced cultures inhabiting the universe. I'm of the opinion, and I've been convinced, and I've been discussing it for nearly 10 years, that there are other cultures, stellan cultures, that inhabit other parts of the universe and are even here in this solar system on or near this planet. So there's no argument there on my part, and that influences my understanding of the way things are. So rather than the conventional thinking of evolution or creation. My thinking is, from my other knowledge, is that this planet was colonized. And there are several ways to colonize a planet. I'm not an expert in space colonization, unfortunately, but these are some ideas that we can work with. A, somebody from another system travels here with some DNA specimens, i.e., some proto-human, and they genetically engineer, using the available DNA here, even corn DNA, and the DNA from bananas and trees and squirrels and fish, frogs, whatever, they combine that proto-DNA which they brought with some of the DNA here to engineer a proto-human. The proto-human evolves, the engineers, the geneticists from afar, they come back, they bring more DNA, and they combine it with the proto-human they've created 1,000 years ago, and they create a new generation of the human. They go away, they come back, you get the idea. They periodically bring additional DNA from their lab, and they combine it, they engineer a new genus. Hence, there's these evolutionary leaps from a primate to a proto-human, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, Homo sapiens, etc. So that evolution does take place on some level, but this evolution is greatly modified through genetic engineering. So that's one form of space colonization. The second idea is that in addition to this evolutionary tract, other human beings from other planets migrated to Earth. And they formed colonies and cultures, even nations later on, that coexisted with the DNA of that engineered proto-human that became human X. And then the migrants also, then they procreated, and then they were maybe engineered. They coexisted. And then there were other migrants, maybe from other star systems and other planets, who looked human, and they migrated to this planet. So all of this immigration created what we can now see is the multicultural indigenous race. Because, but think about it, if you had one proto-human, a primate, how would you get an African, an Asian, and a Caucasian from one, right? Anyway, there's lots of logical problems with this, but this is my understanding. This is with the understanding that there are stellar cultures, there are advanced races, there are people in other star systems and in other parts of the universe, in other galaxies, and even in other universes, even in other dimensions. And they have been traveling here, and they have influenced not only, you know, the nature, but they've also been involved in the engineering of the race, the modification, to such an extent that we are not the indigenous race, which is my basic conclusion is that human beings are not indigenous to Earth. We'd like to believe that. Many people do believe that, and they will go to their grave believing that. But I come from the understanding that you can colonize a planet using many methods. I've given you a couple of methods in summary, that you can bring DNA here, you can migrate here, you can even have the people here, and then you can modify and engineer their children so that the child can be born of a proto-human, and then you can have an engineered human born from the child. I mean, there's many ways, scientifically, and I'm not a scientist even, there's many ways to genetically engineer or modify a species using human, modern scientific methods, and not even thinking about advanced methods that can do things between dimensions, that can do things at a distance. You know, you could email, if you could email DNA to the planet from another system, as a speculative theory here, you can email DNA into the species here, and the child will be a genetically modified person. Without ever having to travel to the planet, you can modify the DNA or the DNA sequences. Just like on a computer, you can go on a computer and you can go online and you can change the computer code, and that updates the website. So imagine you can use a computer to modify the DNA, and then you can upchange the you can update the code of the species, of the human being, of the animal, of the tree, simply by using maybe not a standard computer, but maybe using a special computer or machine to genetically modify and update different things here, including the race of people, or specific races of people, to such an extent that through evolution we are indistinguishable, we look the same. There's a homogeneity among human beings, even though we have, you know, smaller ears or slanted eyes or smaller noses, bigger noses, black hair, white hair, blonde hair. We accept the notion that we're all human, but really all these things can be modified through genetic modification, through genetic sequencing, through genetic engineering, and all of it is controlled through the DNA. If the DNA is thought of as software, you only have to understand how to manipulate genetic software, and maybe not at the early stage, but at the later stages you can just, you know, dial a species, basically. So it's not difficult to colonize a planet, although human beings haven't done it yet. Other species, other races have done it, and some of them look human. And so therefore we are living in a space colony. Welcome to Colony Earth.